Shalom and welcome, all my brothers and sisters, to the second part of my three-part video presentation on the real Messiah, Jesus, the church's claims for who the Messiah, the redefinition of the Messiah, and Isaiah 53, all combined. Now in this presentation, we're going to go head on with Isaiah 53, the claims of the church, claims of many who believe in Jesus as the Messiah, and see if it's very clear that Isaiah 53 can be speaking about Jesus and no one else, and clearly defines what the Messiah is supposed to do. Let's first look at something very fascinating. The actual disciples of Jesus in the Gospels, do they see Isaiah 53 as clearly speaking about the Messiah in the Gospels? Let's take a look at something very interesting. In Matthew chapter 16, first time ever, Jesus basically confronts his disciples and asks them, "Who do you say I am?" And Peter took him and said, "You're the Messiah." And Jesus says, "You're right for 5,000 points. I'm just joking. I'm just making a joke here. But he basically says yes. But he goes on to say, listen carefully. Think about Isaiah 53. It has to be speaking about the Messiah. It has to be Jesus. Let's look at the passages here in Matthew chapter 16, verses 21 through 22. It says, "From that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how he must go into Jerusalem and suffer," Isaiah 53, "suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and be raised on the third day." Again, the scribes, the Pharisees, the Jews, of course, the Jews are the ones who are going to make him suffer and kill him. It's got to be the Jews, not the Romans, because they were sweet Pop-Tarts. There was no problem. The Romans were sweet, nice people. And the Jews were the evil, vile people. You can see passages like this throughout the Christian Bible were the reason why the Jewish people suffered throughout the Middle Ages. But again, he will suffer many things at the hands of the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and be raised on the third day. Now listen carefully. Peter took him, grabbed him, and he said, "Well, praise the Lord! Of course, you're the suffering servant of Isaiah 53. Isn't that what Peter should have said? I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm just saying, isn't that what Peter should have said? You would think, if Isaiah 53 is clearly, I'm being serious here, if Isaiah 53 is clearly speaking about the Messiah, which many Christians believe with all their heart, why shouldn't Peter have grabbed him and said, of course, duh, we know this, of course. But look what it says here. What does he do? Peter began to rebuke Jesus, saying, "God forbid it, Lord, this must never happen to you." Why is Peter saying this? Shouldn't Peter understand, or his disciples understand, that it's obvious to everyone in Jerusalem that the whole concept of the Messiah is to die for the sins of the world and be raised on the third day? If it's so clear, why doesn't Peter speak about this? But no, he freaks out and he rebukes him. He gets upset. Let's look at another example. Mark chapter 9, verse 31 through 32. "For he taught his disciples and said unto them, The Son of Man is to be delivered into the hands of men. They shall kill him. And after that he is killed, he will rise on the third day. But they understood not what he was talking about. And they were afraid to ask him." They had no clue what he was talking about. They should have understood, yes, of course, the Messiah is supposed to die for the sins of the world. Of course. It's obvious. I mean, when you look at Christians, Christian missionaries who go door to door and preach, or on the streets, or messianics, they tell you, of course he's supposed to die. It's all over the Bible. Jesus is jumping all over the place in the Hebrew Scriptures. It's all over the place. You Jews missed the boat. Well, let's take a look at Isaiah 53 and the Christian Bible and the facts and see if Jesus clearly fits the description of Isaiah 53. Let's take Isaiah 53 head on without the rest of Isaiah. I don't need the rest of Isaiah. Because many Christians have said, I don't care what Isaiah 41 through 49 says. I could care less. Isaiah 53 is all I care about. If you read Isaiah 53 and nothing else, this is about the Messiah. So they literally will say, many of them will say, I don't care how many times you say the servant is Israel in the rest of Isaiah. Isaiah 53 is unique and different. It cannot be speaking about Israel. It has to be the Messiah, period. It's Jesus, there's no question. And I'm saying, is that true or not? We're going to take that on head on right now in this video. Does the language of Isaiah 53 clearly show and prove that Jesus has to be the Messiah? Is that clear? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the end of Isaiah 52, verses 13 through 15. Now remember, in the scroll of Isaiah, there were no breaks and chapter breaks and verse breaks. There's no such thing on a scroll. This is just one long scroll of Isaiah. So it really should begin at the end of 52, verses 13 through 15. Now listen carefully about the Messiah. Think of Jesus. See, my servant shall prosper. He shall be exalted and lifted up, and shall be very high. Just as there were many who were astonished at you, saying, surely his visage was marred more than any man, his form more than the sons of men. So shall he startle many nations. Kings shall shut their mouths because of him. For that which had not been told to them, they shall see, and that which they had not heard, they shall understand. So, was Jesus clearly an ugly person? I mean, when you look at artwork of Jesus, does it depict him as an ugly person? His appearance ugly? The answer is no. He's usually a handsome, beautiful man, more beautiful than me, beautiful. And Isaiah 53 clearly states he's a person of, his visage was marred more than any man, a man of pain. Did Jesus have an unpleasant appearance? Not according to Christians, not at all. Appearing almost inhuman, like I just mentioned, doesn't match what Christians believe. What about despised and rejected among men? Can you clearly say that Jesus was despised and rejected above all? Sure, we can use the examples at the end of his days when he was executed by the Romans, but it doesn't say that. It says that he was hated by everyone. He was a man of pain, rejected by all. What do we see in the Gospels? Matthew chapter 4, verses 23 through 25. Listen carefully. And Jesus was going about in all the Galilee, teaching in all their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness among the people. And the news about him went out all throughout Syria. Great multitudes followed him from Galilee to Decapolis and Jerusalem and Judea and beyond the Jordan. He seems like a very unpopular fellow. Not at all. He was very popular. Let's look at more examples. Was he really an unpopular person while he was living? Mark chapter 3, verses 7 through 9. Jesus departed with his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee followed him. Hearing all that he was doing, they came to him in great numbers from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, beyond the Jordan, and the region around Tyre and Sidon. He took his disciples to have a boat ready for him because of the crowds, so that they would not crush him. Sounds like a very unpopular fellow. Here we go. Luke chapter 4, verses 14 through 15. I'm just showing you examples in the Gospels during his lifetime. Was he not popular or was he popular? I mean, let's be real here. Chapter 4 of Luke, verses 14 through 15. Then Jesus, filled with the power of the Spirit, returned to Galilee, and the report about him spread throughout all the surrounding country. He began to teach in all their synagogues and was praised by everyone. It doesn't say he was praised by a couple of lunatics. It says he was praised by everyone. Everywhere he went, he was popular. All over the place. Great crowds, numbers. So we are told to believe that because he was taken at the end in the crucifixion, convicted by a couple of lunatic rabbis who brought him to Rome, that he was despised and rejected by all men? I mean, give me a break. What about a man of pain? Was he a man of pain? It doesn't say a man with a few hours of pain. It says a man of pain, long-term pain, a life of pain. How many times does the scriptures in general, I'm saying in general, how many times does the Hebrew scriptures say about the Messiah that he will be suffering constant pain and illness? The answer is only in Isaiah 53, if Isaiah 53 is speaking about the Messiah. So this would be the only passage or chapter. So it's not clear or consistent. Now what we saw in the first video, the clear and consistent scripture about the definition of the Messiah is very clear and consistent. Would be the only chapter that mentions this. Is there any evidence that Jesus experienced pain and illness throughout his life? Really is no description, only during the crucifixion for a couple of hours. It's not a lifelong dealing of pain and suffering. Did Jesus go silently to his death? As it says in Isaiah chapter 53 verse 7. Did he go silent? Matthew chapter 26 verse 39. And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." Like, take this burden off of me. I don't want to do this. Take this from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want. But if I had it my way, I'd probably not do it. It's obvious. Somebody who would never want to go to their death. Matthew chapter 27 verse 46. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? This, to me, is not saying touchdown or I did it. It's saying that he feels like something went totally wrong. That's how we take it. Now, Christians will take it some other way. But to anyone with open ears, it looks as if something went terribly wrong, and he's crying out to God like, "My God, what have you done? You've failed me." He's not going silent to his death. John chapter 18, verse 36. Now remember, throughout the Gospels, you see Jesus always, when he's doing a miracle or doing something, he always tells his followers or those around him, "Keep your mouth shut. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone what I did. Keep it a secret. Don't tell anyone." Look what he says in John chapter 18, verse 36. Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from this earth." That's a very convenient answer, by the way, to get out of it. Don't worry about it. It's not of this world. It's of the heavens, up in the Hibbles. It's a very convenient, cautious way of getting out of trouble. But he also says in the book of John, he actually tries to tell him, "I was open, very open. I kept nothing in secret." But like I just said, he always told all his followers and people to keep their mouths shut about what he did. But yet he tells the Roman leader, "I was open with everyone. I kept no secrets." So we see many, many examples. For example, in Isaiah 53 verse 8, "Due to the transgression of my people, they," lamo, they, not he, was afflicted. It says they, lamo, were afflicted, or the affliction came to them. Isaiah 48 verse 21, "They did not thirst when he led them through the deserts. He made water flow for them." There's another example of them. Lamo. For them. Lamo. "From the rock, he split open the rock and the water gushed out." Now the word lamo is mistranslated in the Christian version of Isaiah 53 as he. It's lamo, to them. We're not going to get into that very deeply, but if you look up the word lamo in a concordance or an interlinear, look up other passages where lamo appears. For example, here's an example. Isaiah 48, verse 21, like I just read. Made water flow to them, lamo, to them. Was Jesus disconnected from violence? Isaiah 53 talks about he will be nonviolent. Is this true? Well, in Luke chapter 8, verses 32 through 33, he killed a herd full of swine by putting demons in the swine, supposedly, and killing a whole flock of swine, when it's forbidden in the Torah to cause unlawful harm to animals. What about Luke chapter 19, verse 27? He says there, is he a man of nonviolence? It says, but as for these enemies of mine who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and slaughter them in my presence. Matthew chapter 21, verses 18 through 20. Now in the morning, as he returned into the city, he hungered. When he saw a fig tree, I'm just paraphrasing here, he saw a fig tree, the fig tree did not give fruit. So therefore he cursed a tree. He got angry and cursed out the tree. Said, let no fruit grow unto thee forevermore. Poor fig tree. What did the fig tree do? If that's not bad enough, Mark tells you the reason is because it wasn't the season for fruits. My God. Even a fig tree's not safe. John chapter 2, verses 14 through 15. And he found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and money changers and money launderers. When he had made a whip of small cords, he drove them and whipped them out of the temple and all the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the money changers and overthrew the tables, kicked them out, whipped them. That's nonviolence? I don't think so. What about Luke chapter 22, verse 36? He said to them, but now the one who has a purse or bag must take it, and likewise another bag. And the one who has no sword, he must go out and buy a sword. He tells his disciples, if you don't have a sword, go out and buy one. If you don't have enough, sell your clothing or your cloak. Sounds like a man of nonviolence. Why is he asking his disciples to pick up swords? Later on, we see in the gospel, Peter chops off the ear of the Roman court. And he says, those that live by the sword will die by the sword. Well, why did he ask them to get swords? We see many examples that are many problems of the Messiah being someone in Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53 clearly, if you look at the whole Isaiah, from 49 through 54, says many times that Israel is the servant. These are just several examples. I can go on and on, but I don't want this video to be too long. There are many examples, many problems. I will post a link to information that'll help you read up more on these examples. You could download the information and actually study it for yourself. I'll be putting that information very soon in the description. Thank you for joining. I have one more part in this video presentation. I hope you'll join me. Shalom.